736.
Uh-oh.
We lost connection for a little bit.
No, I'm only gonna have half of my comments to look back on. Maybe not.
What number again?
736.
736, okay.
This is one of the objectives of that is laid out in this section. We say objective 2 is update and expand the 1992 biological natural areas of Weathersfield, Vermont to include all of the town's rare, threatened, and endangered species and all significant natural communities. And I wonder if all is just a kind of an aggressive, it seems hard to do all. I came up with a wording that said like, was more like add to or something like that, and I forgot to write it down.
Expand upon.
Yeah, expand the natural biological areas, just because.
I agree.
Why not do that? But also, all seems aggressive. 758. That's 758. Pursue scenic highway designation for Route 131 from the Cavendish Town boundary to Golden Ridge Road. Pursue designation of the North Branch and the Black River as scenic waterways. I wondered if that should be 2 bullets, but then I saw there's some other kind of grouped like things, so maybe we like that.
What does it do to the roads when they're designated as a scenic highway? Does it change anything as far as transportation or maintenance of the road or the overwhelming scope of things?
The scenic designation has impact on future developments depending what they might be. And that's why it is important for us to specifically identify those scenic locations and their direction, which is not included in the current town plan.
Do you know about the state's designation as like a scenic road, like from Downers going west on 131, it's state designated scenic highway? Do you know, does that have a regulatory impact?
Or just a tourist.
What you're identifying as a scenic natural resource, it is being identified specifically to preserve that scenic resource. So yeah, it would have an impact on certain types of development. I think we talked about this once before. If somebody was going to put in a set of solar panels or a windmill or a cell tower, it wouldn't be located in the middle of that view.
Or along a scenic highway.
Right, which is why we had to identify exactly, yes, along the scenic highway, okay, the highway itself is scenic.
There's 2 things though, that's the town plan, we wanna be very specific about how we call that stuff out.
Right.
But the state also has their own program, that's like the
scenic waterway, scenic highway.
Yeah, and it goes on a map, and I think it's like tourists would come up and drive this scenic road, but I don't know if the state's program has regulatory impacts too.
Okay.
Well, these are pretty big swaths of land here, so how far out would that also include as far as the view or like? That could be a pretty impactful.
That's the question, that's the thing.
We're not sure what a scenic road to the state is.
Right.
So maybe
Seems
we
like
can
it
find
might
out.
be a good thing, but we should find out.
Yeah, before saying that we should do that.
Yeah, just
find
like-
out.
Probably, yeah,
You're looking at Ryan.
probably should know.
Yeah, we should probably know.
Yeah.
Especially where it's mentioned.
Why are you looking at me?
Whoever does this should look into that,
I think it's a great job.
Now you know why we're looking at you.
Great.
There's your rabbit hole.
Aren't you so glad?
Any more questions?
Chapter taken, education, can I sign up for that? It is, it's been taken.
So,
That's quick.
How about,
he wants to do 2 lead.
here's the,
I already planned it.
I might only have one more to go.
That's it?
Might only?
780. Oh, 777. Crown Point Road. We say designating the Crown Point Military Road as a special status road with the goals of historic preservation and protection of landowners' rights. Those 2 sort of, well, Anyway, they seem,
That term doesn't really mean anything.
what, which
Special status road,
Yeah,
does it? I've never heard that before.
I've never heard, I don't know what that is. Historic preservation seems like a worthy goal, landowners' rights are worthy,
So another research.
it seems like. I wonder where, this is old language that we've not changed, we don't know where it came from.
Mhm. Anecdotally, I've been told that the Crown Point Road was intended to go from a class 4 road to a legal trail during the ancient road process, and it wasn't finalized.
And
I don't know, I'm not sure that that's how I heard it.
Okay.
I was at those hearings.
Okay.
And I think the intent was for it to go to a trail in the beginning. But the point was that there were significant sections and portions of that that were used by the snowmobile clubs and other landowners for logging on their own property. And at that time, I don't know if this has changed, but at that time, the definition of a trail banned the use of any motorized vehicles.
Exactly.
And therefore, it was set aside, it wasn't coming back.
Okay.
It was.
so is that the reference to the protection of landowners' rights?
No, protection of landowner rights comes from the issues, I think, relative to two locations where, there's a class 4 roads policy in town. We should all take a look at that. Because that was crafted and created and is used to, kind of spell out how you can use this Crown Point Road. It's under the class 4 section. And we had a group of people that decided that now that it's class 4 road, it's owned by the town. We can go cut and clear and do what we want. And they got on into a couple of places where the landowners were saying, no, stop, get out of here. You don't have a right. Well, yeah, we do. No, you don't. And then it comes into the legal battle of going and proving there's some of you, there's anybody here that's actually on the plan, select board. But when you do, when you lay out the road, Forrest is, I know she's online. I was talking about this board. When you lay out a road, there is a specific required criteria for designating that road and laying it out and the process, and it's extensive. And if it was never done, then it literally goes back into the 1800s and lists 3 things that you have to do. I know this because I went through it last year with Old Bow Road, which is still in litigation. Okay, and that's where the challenges are. Who laid out the road? Where's the survey? Where's this? And none of that was done following the ancient roads. Okay, so that becomes the argument from any landowner is show me the surveys. Show me, and they come through one place and they said that, they're cutting up through. He's like, you're not cutting up through here. Go over there. No, this is where it is. So there's this argument that's coming there. I get it. The people that are trying to, create the trail, which it's been there forever before we were a country. But he never had any trouble with his property until this happened. and all of this was created, and then these people just decided to start, taking care of a town class 4 road, without anybody's permission. They didn't come to the town and get guidance from the board or anybody. They didn't get landowner permission to go out there and do it. They just went. And fortunately, it's just a couple guys, and they made a few phone calls, and they were pretty pissed off. And it's not right. So, some of that's gotta be looked at. So I do support this preservation of landowner rights. Anybody going out there to work on this class 4 road for the purpose of the Crown Point Road and hiking and the Crown Point Association and whatever they wanna call themselves, they need landowner permission before they step on somebody else's property and start cutting. The landowner himself can't maintain that road without coming to the town. So how did these people they kind of got it through the class 4 road policy. It was put in there. So we gotta look at that, and so does the select board. Select board's gonna have to look at that, and anyway, that's my story.
Yeah, good, like,
And I got my first year as chair of the select board. I brought all of the chairs of all the committees together for a meeting. Most of them were there. The idea being that the select board is the ultimate authority, that's the legislative body. And that every other board is a subcommittee of that board. And, you know, before you go do something, we need to be all working together. Kind of discussion, which they all agreed with. So.
I'm kind of curious on line 785 with the buffers around rivers and streams. And kind of with what the Conservation Commission's working on right now with the naming of the rivers and streams. Now, some rivers are pretty obvious, like the Connecticut River and the Black River. But then there's a lot of smaller tributaries and stuff like that. Where is that line of delineation drawn? And then how do we also make sure that we're still protecting landowners' rights and all of that? Because this seems like it could have a whole bunch of sweeping unintended consequences and positive things at the same time.
so I think that's the. You know, the objective is to sort through those things.
And that's what the Conservation Commission's doing.
No.
I thought they were working on that.
They're working on a state stream naming project. I shouldn't say working on. They worked on a stream naming project a long time ago and sort of stalled. But that's not the same as this objective.
Well, I was just wondering if there was like any.
But yeah, to your point about the how do you define a certain size stream and things like that.
That's all
Yeah.
defined by the state, that's unrelated, I mean, I think it's really nice that we're encouraging people to plant trees along streams, that's.
So should it have something in there as state designated waterways and streams or something like that?
Well, I think the bullet point that which says consider and adopt shoreline protection and encourage retention. Those are the kind of sort of general questions that are leading to a discussion. So if we were going to take this up and say we should consider a shoreline protection bylaw or something like that, then that's us, you know, starting the conversation, and that's where we need to sort things through. I don't think we need to really define any of that here.
Yeah, and where you went, Joe, of calling out like the state, I don't think you wanna do that, because there might be multiple. Directions that any of this kind of stuff comes from, including us.
Yeah.
So just kind of leave it as it is, or?
Yeah, it can be broad here.
Okay.
And. I don't mean to sound negative about buffers because I like them. This is in there because it was in there before.
Right.
There's not a particularly specific reason that this, other than, you know, it's a good thing.
Right.
Maybe there's an improved wording version.
But we do have,
Yeah, it's fine.
we do have stream bank language in the zoning bylaws.
Mhm.
That lays out identifying remember the high and low water mark things and how to calculate those distances for the
Really fun.
buffers and all that stuff. That's all in our zoning.
It's really fun when you got a property line that follows a stream, and you know streams never stay in one place.
Yeah, that's true. And the buffer moves with the stream.
And so the other function that having this objective in here does is the second one. It says encourage landowners along rivers and streams to retain and enhance buffers. That's a non-regulatory
Yes.
implementation,
Yeah.
and it might be something that if the Conservation Commission took a project to just sort of like held an educational event where someone came and spoke about this kind of thing, they can point to the town plan and say, this is in line with what the town plan is saying. We're trying to educate people about these, you know.
I think probably one of the most important things that came out of Irene was the recognition that the original buffers were no touch zones. You stay out of it. But a lot of the flooding that occurred because of down timber and stuff that wasn't being maintained. in those buffers. And it gets picked up by the water and it collects somewhere, usually in like a culvert or a bridge. And now you've lost a road and all kinds of other.
Where I was going with this thought line.
Yeah, but a lot of that came out, Irene, right, Howard, a lot of that was identified in Irene and state language coming forward and we kind of recognized it too here.
Any other comments on this?
Really looking forward to Hank's revision.
Hank, there's 23 more lines.
He just did them, he's gotta do
So all I gotta submit them. Sounds good, but I think nobody complained much, just put them in.
Just wait.
Well, that's the next meeting, then it goes back to Ryan, I hope to God.
They'll be twice as long.
All right, moving on to discussion for home business permits and transfers of ownership.
So I requested this. I want to clarify right out of the box that I am a home-based business. I had an original home occupation business. I think it was 4.2, 4.20, 4.22, something like that, in the older bylaws. So I have this thing. Well, someday I'm going to be gone, one way or another, either moving or dying. So what happens with the business? There was a building that was built specifically for the business. There's a business that exists there. And there's a house that's required because it's a home-based business. But what does transfer of ownership of a business like that look like? Either way, whether it's a sale or a death, somebody wants the business. Do they have to go and start at square one? I don't think that's a good place to be. I think they need to understand the permit in its entirety and its complexity. And follow, they either buy it or they don't buy it based on what it says. But if they buy it, they buy the land and they buy the permit would be under some sort of review, obviously, so that the permit gets moved into their name.
That's what I was thinking, is that I think the building or the use for the building is grandfathered in. They don't have to do anything with that,
They don't have to.
but I think that, if they're coming in, unless they're gonna pick up the same business or run under the same parameters. I think it would make sense for them to at least come in with some kind of a permit review.
Oh, there's gotta be a.
Yeah, to know what they're putting in, because they may change the use dramatically, to the point where it's really offensive and,
Well, if they're buying the property with, I would say if they're buying, I'll stay specific with mine just to keep us focused. Mine's a motorcycle business. It's a repair business, inspection shop. It's all indoors. It's not a sale facility. If they came in and they wanted to do sales, they'd have to come in for a conditional use review.
Right.
That's just the way it is. That's just standard. I'd have to do that. So with that, but if I'm selling it to them and they want to run the business exactly the way it is, there should be a way to transfer that in the sale that should be simple.
So my experience with that is that if it's gonna be the same business, all they have to do is they go see Ryan and say, Ryan, I'm buying Mike's business, nothing changes. And Ryan issues a new zoning permit for the operation to continue. It's a simple one page, they sign an affidavit that nothing's gonna change. They're gonna operate it pretty much like what you're doing. And they
Well,
just come to
pretty much.
him.
No, exactly.
Or exactly. So exactly, and they go to Ryan, and Ryan, it's a one-page document, he signs it, approves it.
I think that part's okay, but I think they need to go through all the documents that exist.
Yeah, they gotta check,
Because that's an Act 250 also on.
yeah, so you have to have the documentation, and so the sale is gonna be contingent upon their
Right.
ability to get a zoning permit that meets all of the requirements of the zone. They just need to prove that, because you have all the paperwork from when you did all that,
It's all there.
it's a notebook.
It's just a name change.
Yeah, but they still have to go to Ryan and say, here's the documentation, nothing changes, motorcycle repair,
Yeah.
whatever the fee is,
But
$10.
I get it. What I'm saying is that's the easy part.
Right,
making sure they understand what's in the permit is also part of this. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, so it just, if it wasn't home-based business, it was just another business, the same thing happens if that business sells and someone else moves in. Typically, they wouldn't even have to come see me, they just have to comply with their permit. So if the vet shop changed owner shops and another vet came in, they don't have to tell me that, I don't know that it changed. But they need to, just like the previous owner, they need to comply with the permit that's on file. And so if anything changes.
But I think they should have a permit that's in their name, even there.
Well,
I
so-
agree with that, but I think that a simple process where they have a permit that's in their name to operate that business.
Well, so I guess how does that compare to just like a single family home? Someone who has a permit to build a home that runs with the land, new people come in, they don't change their
Their
name.
name gets put on the deed.
On the deed, yeah, but not on the permit itself.
But not on the permit.
Yeah, and so I don't see any reason there needs to be a permit with the same name as the deed. But like any owner of a piece of property needs to understand if there's zoning in the town, then they need to comply with the permit that's on file. So there's some impetus there.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand how a person is conveying that piece of property. You know, cause I mean, if I were to sell that business, I've gotta have that conversation with a potential buyer.
Well, it's gonna be your disclosure that, you know,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a. The way I've said, there'd be a disclosure and saying, in order to operate the business, these are the permits and regulations the thing was approved under, and here's the list. You have the documents, here's the book, they can look at it.
Yep.
And that's the condition of sale.
I think the part of it is the enforcement of telling someone they need to come in to change their name on the permit, is I don't always know, or I rarely know, when a property changed ownership. And I don't know if anyone's complying with their permit unless I am told by somebody that there's a situation I need to look into.
Right.
Okay.
So
Permit has to be tied to the deed too, so when an attorney comes in and does a title search. That he will find that documentation of that business, how it has to be run.
well, the permit's tied to the parcel and the deed is tied to the parcel.
Right.
But the permit doesn't usually reference the deed and the deed
Right.
doesn't usually
Yeah,
reference.
it's
it.
never, I've never seen it in the deed.
Permit references the deed because it references the plat, the document, it references the zoning lot number.
Right.
The parcel.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so indirectly it does.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if it's in the deed, then people are gonna catch it at the time of transfer.
But it's typically not in the
It's
deed.
typically not in the deed, though.
Right.
And this is not.
I've never seen it on
But
this.
there's an impetus for for an owner of a piece of land to know what the regulations are.
So is there something necessary or not?
So I think there's the question that comes to my mind is I think it naturally should transfer. The permit that's on the property is the permit that's on the property and you need to comply with it no matter what it says.
Correct.
And if you wanna change it, you need to change it.
But that's change of use and that's a difference
There's a process to change.
That's a whole.
I think one of the questions that comes to mind is how long does it last if the business stops running? Like if you've transferred your ownership, a new person comes in and didn't start running it right away,
2 years.
maybe it was
It's
2
already-
years. Huh?
It's already in there.
It's in there 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
After
'cause
2
it
years,
used to be 6 months. I think we changed it to 2 years.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
in there, that answers my
The,
question.
the grandfather clause, I think, is in our bylaws. I think we extended that to 2 years. That had to do, I think, with.
The farmers, like, didn't it?
Well, it either had to do with the old Amston schools, the Amston store, or it had to do with the Perkinsville store, I think was
Oh,
where we had the biggest discussion about that.
so it's not specifically in the home-based business bylaw, it's in that
It's
destroyed buildings or
I
whatever,
think it's in general,
okay.
it's in general rules.
Cause that would be my question, is if someone went 10 years and maybe 3 ownerships later, like that permit is still on file because no one like revokes a permit, you know? So, okay,
The Connecticut has a weird law where you actually have to have an act of abandonment. Otherwise, that thing carries forever, which is really weird.
Well, and maybe that's something for us to consider. How do we want that to go? I mean. That whole thing that's up there now it could be gutted out and turned into a barn. Somebody could have a farm. Hey, do whatever.
I think where the rubber meets the road is how the next owner and the new neighbors interact. Like when that relationship gets completely scrambled because they haven't had a business there for 2 years and some new people move in, that relationship between the neighbors and the town through the permit should be redefined, so like having a time period. Versus a active abandoned, right, like, this seems like it makes perfect sense. There is there's always the point of like, do we hope that everybody does it right and it works out, or should we be involved? Ryan's point of like, I don't know what's going on out there, to me is just like. That's,
Well, this is why I brought it up. I just was curious, where does it go? What happens?
Yeah.
it sounds, but it sounds like,
I mean, if
the right
there's
thing's going on.
a 2-year. You buy the property, you don't do anything for 2 years. And then it's gone. That seems to make, because 2 years is a pretty big chunk of time.
But there's also a difficulty in enforcement because I don't always know when the
You don't
business
know.
was abandoned, or when the property.
So it's gonna rely on the neighbors to say, hey,
Right,
and most people
Well, and
probably.
also
have no
there's-
idea.
there's. With business, there's often tax documents or whatever, like documentation could be provided.
From the two scenarios I created, you got my death certificate, that's one.
You're right.
Or I
but
sold,
I don't necessarily, so I don't really see that, the clerks do, but they don't give me everything that they handle.
well, maybe that's something we need to talk
But
about.
having, I don't think this,
Internal controls.
Yeah.
doing something that would add more responsibility to the land use administrator doesn't seem like a good, like, we don't need to do anything here. Is what we're concluding, I think that's correct.
No, but I think some questions that have come up that need answers.
So more policies and procedures is what I'm getting out of this.
Okay.
I think Brian's gonna do, just, they come in, if it's the same use, you just sign off and say, fine, you go.
But they,
But we just
but
go.
how do they know
But
they
if
come
that's-
in? And how does Brian know they haven't come in?
But if that's the case, that needs to be in writing.
Right.
Because if he's not here and you're not here and I'm not here, and somebody else says,
Right.
So it needs to,
no, you can't do that, it's not in your name.
so it has to be either some kind of a bylaw or an ordinance.
No, wait a second here, instead, it's the reverse, it's when somebody's like, hey, they didn't run their business for 2 years, that permit should be.
That's already taken care of somebody else. Forget about that.
So,
That's already taken care of.
I agree.
If a business, it's either 2 or 3 years, if a business stops being used.
and it's provable.
It doesn't mean you can't have a business there, it means that you're starting at square one.
And
I'd have to see that language. I know there's a time period after a building burns or is destroyed by whatever, there's a time period that they get to go ahead and rebuild or whatever. But I don't see anything in the business side
Well,
that says if
we
your
got
business is down.
Another one that disappeared on us? Because I know we did that. We did that when we were still upstairs years
Would that
ago.
apply to commercial properties and not just home-based businesses too?
Well, they can apply to commercial property. Once you have a home-based business, that becomes commercial
Okay,
property.
so it wasn't a home-based specific thing that you're referring to?
No,
Yeah, I don't recall.
No, I don't
As
believe
far
it
as businesses and time periods.
but if there were, what was that called? It's not really a grandfather rule, or maybe it is. But it's, but it was finite. It was like,
So it was business continuation, something or other, something or other.
yeah,
There's some. Yeah,
So Rockingham has a bylaw for home-based businesses, they're good for 1 year, and they need to come back and get a new permit each year. And that seems like a horrible process. They also have home occupation, so they have home occupation and home business, 2 different levels. And I don't know if it's both of them, at least one of them is tied to the landowner and not the property. So if that land ownership changes or they move to another place in town, that permit's no longer good. I would say I'm generally in favor of the permit that is the permit for the property, no matter who owns it, this is what the permit is. But I do think that the point about how long a time period if the business goes down is valid.
Well, it's almost like when you look up on GIS, you'll see all the permits and everything that are there. They're all attached, it's like, okay, so and so did this, so and so did this, you see the history of everything there.
but these changes are just additions to the existing bylaw. You can put this stuff right in the home business bylaw.
Yeah.
Or you could put it in the commercial first, if you wanted to, that part to extend.
maybe it applies to all businesses.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's so granular, if we say 2 years, it's like very rarely is there gonna be a situation where someone would be like, 2 years is up and this person started a business, it's probably gonna be more like 10-15 years later, someone's like, I bought the property, I saw I had a permit to run a motorcycle shop here. and the other person's like, there hasn't been a shop here for 20 years.
Okay.
That's when I go back and say, okay, that doesn't meet that criteria, you get a new permit for that.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they can't do it, but they gotta start over.
Yeah.
Cause I don't typically, there's really no reason for me to look at a parcel file unless there's a situation that comes up or someone comes in with a question or something like that.
Well, so you're looking at kind of a trigger point of, oh, there's a commercial structure, whether it's home base or not. It's been empty for a little bit, all of a sudden 2 years goes by, I can think of a couple spots here in town. Then it's a well-defined already a commercial space,
But it's been empty.
and now you gotta start all over when it seems quite straightforward that
Well,
it should be.
but that's a change of use, unless, I mean, even if you're doing the same, at the end of the 2 years or 3 years, pick a number, I don't care what the number
This
is.
is what qualifies to as change of use, is it just a store is going back in, is it
No.
a shop, is
No,
it?
change of use is, let's say it was a motorcycle shop and you wanna put in a store, they're not the same thing.
But if I wanna put in the same motorcycle shop 10 years later,
It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
you'd still need to go redo the permit. Because you've exceeded the,
whatever that,
yeah,
whatever that nebulous, I
Yeah.
was undefined.
This is for home-based businesses.
what I was really concerned about was the language for sale. Like, if somebody wants to sell, cause we have a lot of home-based businesses, and some of them are in barns or outbuildings, whatever. And what does a landowner say to a potential buyer in regards to the business and how that's gonna transfer the need for because it's a home-based business, it's not a commercial lot. It's a home-based business, the business is requires the house to be there and
Accessory use, so.
it's an accessory use, yeah, so it's all kind of tied together, and you just wanna make sure that it goes, it can be sold that way.
Yes.
And that person can go in and use the business. If I sold the business, I would expect that they could use the business tomorrow, with the day after
That would be your.
I get the check, they
I
can do
think that
whatever they want.
I think that makes perfect sense.
That's all I'm looking for.
I think a time limit makes sense too.
I do, I
Yeah.
agree with that too,
Right.
I know we did that, I remember it.
We should definitely do it
That's
again,
way
because it was a
back.
good idea then, still a good idea.
It is.
So you're volunteering to look up the time limit, Mike?
I could do some things, but that's probably not one of them.
I swear, I heard you wrong.
Try.
That going in Connecticut, that's a state law, that's not a town thing.
I don't recall this being a state, I think it was, one of those languages in, Title 24-117 on how to handle that stuff, and it was adopted, and it was at 6 months. And I remember us changing it to either 2 or 3 years, might have
3 years.
have been 5. I remember changing that,
Better.
but 6 months was not.
6
I
months.
see Ryan writing, so that must mean Ryan's gonna look it up.
I'm gonna add commercial use expiration
Why are
to
we so
the
concerned
future
about this
bylaw
whole
discussion.
Point finger,
Um,
I don't like this.
After we wrap up the town plan, we can kind of refocus. I think this is a natural thing that's gonna come up as we go through our bylaws.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just go on the list. I don't think we
I
need to
think
single this out as a particular priority project, but
it's not high
it
priority.
should be included in the whole revision when we go.
You're on for. You got time.
Yeah, I'm
Kind of
I'm kind of miserable, so I think I'll be here for another 20 years or so.
There you go.
Well, that's up.
Good.
Curmudgeon?
How is it,
What about
I'm so
you?
miserable, God doesn't want me and hell's afraid I'll take over.
Moving on is.
Well, since you say that, let's go to item number 10 at this point, more of Mike's discussions that have been brought up. Campground specific use and standards.
And Ross Gerard has just entered the room, and he is, the gentleman that talked to me, and, I requested this.
Well, thank you for coming out, sir. Oh, Mike,
So refresh me the issue, what the issue
Yeah,
is.
lead on.
Well, I'll let Ryan, Ross and myself do that. I'll kick it off. Apparently, there's, a camper in Ross's campground that wants to add a carport and a deck, I guess, right? Is that it?
They wanna put a roof over their camper and have a deck on the side.
And a deck on the side. And the question is, does that require permits?
So if Ross is
construction?
doing it, it would probably.
I have.
it's a structure, but it's a structure, it's a campground.
Anything over
Howard.
50,
How does it-
square feet needed to pull a permit.
Right.
So I've always sent people in if it's over 150 square feet.
Russ, could you come up to the podium so this thing picks you up on here? So when we go back to get the notes from everything, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It goes back many years, but they told me that anything over 150 square feet required a permit. So I've always told my people, you know, if your deck's gonna be more than 10 by 15 or whatever, or you're, wanna build a shed, it's gotta have a permit if it reaches a certain point. And then this lady came in to do this and they wanna do a site plan review and it's like. It's going over a camper in a campground, I don't understand where we're at here, so.
So I'll explain that process. I got an application for the carport structure. So I go to the district that it's in the highway commercial district. And to look for the uses. Campground is listed as uses prohibited in the district. And so there's a process for so that classifies it as a non-conforming use. And so we have a section about non-conforming uses and how they're allowed to continue. And there's some details in there. But non-conforming uses are inherently conditional, or they require conditional use review by the DRB. And so I guess the question is, if you're adding a structure to your property that requires site plan review and conditional use review, do you need to have site plan review done again to add that structure? And so I think the crux of the conversation that Mike wants to get to is, should campgrounds be treated differently than other commercial businesses? And I think because the idea is that if it's a permit that a camper is taking out, it would be in theory temporary. Is that what you're thinking?
Mostly, yeah. So a little bit of thought went into this. Say campground and a campsite. He's the campground. He owns the campground, he owns the whole thing, and he's got a house and he owns the campground. If he's putting in a carport or something like, he needs permit. Okay, but campsites, almost anything that happens there, it's, how big are the sites, the campsites?
They vary, but 30 feet wide by, 50, 60 feet deep.
So
Most houses are bigger than the campsite to begin with. And then the other thing is, when I look at the purpose of zoning. And the purpose of zoning, we look at, we talked about it earlier, maintenance growth, controlling the growth in the town. Well, what does that mean? That has to do with the impact on the infrastructure or services of the town, right? Yes, Howard? Right, I mean, so these campgrounds are, for the most part, seasonal. What's your percentage on that? 80, 85, 90%?
I'm about 70% seasonal.
And you've got some that are permanent or year round.
Well, there's campers on site, on winter sites, but there's nobody permanent year round.
Oh, people aren't there, the campers there.
Campers.
But we have sites that can be used in winter.
Look,
We've probably got 20 plus sites that we can use in the winter.
So you're not talking about at school. You're really, I don't think you're really talking about any change to fire services or police services, because he's got X number of sites that already exist. Right, you're talking about building a carport or a deck at a campsite. Now, the guy's there for 3 years, decides he's gonna go down on Route 5 to Ellen's campground.
See, that's my question is, if it's built on your property, you own it. And then you're a camper that comes in and rents for a season, at the end of the season, he's gone, does he take the car apart with him? I mean, if it's there permanently, then it's your property.
Well,
If he moves out, it stays there, right? And the other guy comes in,
no, not necessarily, like, well, a lot of people take their decks with them or whatever, but. A structure like that, if they're building it on under a particular camper, it's like it's not gonna be able to be put over another camper, would have to be removed.
And even the deck. The next camper that comes into that site, you don't know that they're not the same thing.
right?
They're all different.
We used to allow people to leave the decks, but it got to be a point where 3 three people down the road would leave the deck and then all of a sudden somebody would leave, and I don't want that deck, it's all rotted.
And
So
it's your
now I
problem.
gotta take care of it.
Right, and that was another point that I was making, was that all of those decisions are between him and the camper. And again, it's not him putting something in. So,
It just seems weird to have somebody else putting something on your property, which typically that's an encumbrance on your property.
it's a campground, Howard.
Oh, I know, but it's still private property.
So I have a question for you, Ross.
Yeah.
So is there a situation where someone has a camper? I don't like camping anymore. And they leave it there. Do they sell the camper on site? Does that happen to you?
Typically, we don't allow people to sell them and transfer the thing because we do some sort of a check, and we actually have a waiting list of people that want to come in.
Okay.
So it's not fair for me to sell it to you and say you can stay, and you were on my waiting list.
5 years.
Right,
Shucks, I wanted to have my own deck.
right, so that's kind of, we jumped over the, you know, if you wanna sell it, that's fine, but if we have a place for you, that's fine, but you're not buying the camper on that site to stay there.
Okay, so that answers that question. So then that person that builds this, so explain to me, they wanna build a deck and a cover over the camper?
Yeah, some of the people do it, because limbs come down, like you get a gray sugar roof or
So
whatever.
what's the size of the proposed shelter? Do you have,
I don't even have that with me, it's like,
but I mean, the trailer must be what, 25, 30 feet long?
right,
And it's the width of the trailer, how wide's the trailer, 10 feet typically, 12
5
feet?
8 feet.
8 feet, so the thing could be
It's probably a
25,
10 or 12 foot wide roof.
yeah, by the length of
And then I think
25
that
feet.
was gonna be like 10 by 10 or something, if I
Yeah.
recall, I don't have the information with me.
I have a question, and how many other campers already have this?
Quite a few.
Okay,
Under the minor structure, as he pointed out earlier.
And they
Below 150 square feet.
Permits for it, and I've never been questioned about it before, so I don't know.
And you're allowed to have 3 minor structures or something like that?
There is something about minor structures you can have, yeah, a total of 5. Based on the number of,
Trees. I think it's a cumulative number of square feet.
Or like,
oh, maybe
You're allowed to have a
500 square feet. Is that
you're allowed to have some and then you have to get a permit after that.
That's.
And those, yeah, so those are written notifications, you don't need a permit for them. But so I can see the point about a deck, if someone had a deck that was something that was just placed on the ground, it could be broken down into pieces where they could easily take it away, like that passes the test that, yeah, okay, I can see how that will leave when you leave. The carport that's set in the ground is a little bit different, like obviously nothing is permanent, in a sense, we can take down any building. But a carport, if the same structure was gonna be built on a property that was single family residential, they would need a permit for the carport because it's a structure on the property.
how are the majority of the carports attached with concrete footings and everything, or are they spiked in?
Put on blocks.
Yeah, blocks and spikes and anchor ropes, it's pretty easy to move.
Yeah.
So are shipping containers, and we require a permit for a tarp shed or a shipping container, anything that's a structure, a building that's on your property, even if it's very temporary, like a tarp shed.
How complicated do we wanna be with zoning?
I don't wanna be complicated, and I would be more than happy to have an exemption for tarp sheds and very simple things like that. But right now, we don't have anything that allows an exception for that.
Well, if they make an exception for it on a campground, then why would the exception apply somewhere else?
I think that's what he just, I think that's what he
Yeah,
asked, I'm saying.
that's what gets awkward, you start making exceptions.
And
Well,
it's hard to track and enforce too, so.
Well, again, it comes down to how restrictive do you want what is the purpose of zoning?
Oh, I know.
Does, somebody,
treat people equally.
somebody put it, I understand that, Howard, so treat them equally on the side, on the relaxed side, how's that? In other words, how does putting up a carport have an impact on the school?
Doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
There's other
I think-
considerations,
I
but
think
now you're saying
the
that
issue-
anybody town can put a carport without a permit. If
Maybe-
maybe everybody equally, if they can do it in a campground, they can do it on any piece of private property.
It's just a carport, maybe it changes with,
I have no question about getting a permit, I think that should be, if it's over a certain size, I just think this site plan review is ridiculous.
Right.
You know, if they need a permit, I've been sending people in for permits for years. that's not an issue, but all of a sudden this time it's like, oh, we got a
So-
site plan review.
It's getting shot back because it's a non-conforming use and there's. So isn't there a hardship that could be used on that technically? When you have a pre-existing non-conforming use, you can use a hardship for it, but I know I've heard that. It's a self-imposed hardship back into the catch 22.
I think you're thinking of a variance. A variance
Yeah.
is something that you need to show that you have a hardship for.
Right.
But you wouldn't request a variance on like the process necessarily, that's more.
Maybe this, the quickest rule here is. You said that most of the time they come in and get a building permit if they're gonna build something anyway.
Right, if it's over
Just
100
get rid of the
feet,
site plan review for a campground. So
Well,
you
my
might have
structure
structure, conditional use permit and all this crap and put it up.
So I think I think that's a good conversation we should have about our site plan bylaws.
Right.
You know, I thought we were talking about something more specific to campgrounds and their temporary nature of who, you know, who's here and who goes. So if the conversation was, if it's gonna be a temporary structure that goes with the camper when they leave, I think that sort of makes sense to have under the campground specific bylaw.
Right.
But I think there's the deeper point is how do we administer our site plan review if someone goes in when this was just a raw piece of land and someone wanted to build a new campground, that's when site plan review is applied. You're gonna have roads here, you're gonna have buildings and whatever, and they sort of lay out the process and
And
that's the site plan
setbacks
review.
too.
And so this is an issue that's come up in the past is if someone wants to add a building to their property that required site plan review, does that also require site plan review? And I've always treated it as it does because there are the things that they review in site plan would be pertinent to that question. Are there gonna be lights in what direction are they pointing? Is there a new section of road to get to that building?
But this is a much different neighborhood. It's not the same type of neighborhood. Okay, it's a campground, they're 30 by 60 foot lots that are right together.
But so my question is, should we be requiring a site plan review for something that requires it at its establishment when things are being added to it? And I think there's some nuance to that. And so maybe the campground bylaw specifically could say that the addition of temporary structures in a campground doesn't trigger that, but all of that language isn't in there.
Right, and what my conversation with you was, like, if he came in and wanted to add 20 lots. That's site plan review, right?
Absolutely.
Right, he's changing the campground. But somebody putting up a deck or a carport in this thing. You know, where, you know, and what lights they use and all that stuff.
So I have another.
I truly don't wanna get into that
I
stuff.
have another question for you, Ross. So you're the operator of the campground. I got a site and the guy moves in next door and he puts up the deck and he puts up a bunch of lights and they're shining in my previously peaceful campground and they come to you. You're sort of the judge, jury and executioner, right?
So there wouldn't be any lighting anyway. Yeah, I would be the one that would have.
But you knock on the door and say, hey, guys, you know, if you don't like it, there's the road. I got 5 other guys who will take their site. So you're really the enforcer of
Yeah.
Yes,
peace and civility, as I would say, in the campground. So some of those things, objectionable noise, if you got a camper that's making a lot of noise at 3 AM, you're gonna take the club and whack them, I'm guessing.
That would be nice though.
He's the-
Well, you're gonna permission?
Brian, he is the HOK,
Yeah, so
Housing Authority King.
So the way I look at this is that your campground already has setbacks from the property line, so it meets those. When you got the site plan approval, it meets those setbacks, so I think this is a situation, and I know we don't have it in the language. But it's where these would run with the term of whoever leases the site from you, and when they move out, that stuff goes.
Yeah.
And
that's his battle to have, not ours.
Right, it doesn't matter to us, and you're gonna be, if the guy next door, if he's got speakers and lights, you're gonna go, no, you can't have that. It's not really our jurisdiction, it's your jurisdiction, because you're running a business there, and your goal is to make your people happy, so you have this 2 or 3 year wait list. So I'm thinking, based on this conversation, that we need to fix the site plan requirement. They still need to get a permit for it, for the thing, but, because it can't be over. The lots are 30 by 50, the largest ones,
Maybe 60 feet deep on some of the bigger.
so they're 1,500 square feet. So I don't know, it just seems like a big deal for, I think they definitely need a permit, absolutely. But a site plan review for that, because if it runs with. It's,
I just think that's crazy.
and, but I know Ryan requires for temporary structures and things like that. Or a storage container, but I think that's I don't know, to me.
Well, that wasn't necessarily a specific site plan review, like a permit's needed, that was just a point about temporary structures and how it's
Right.
kind of meaningless, cause anything could be temporary and anything could be permanent.
Right. So the way I kind of feel about this is that, that site plan review for this is kind of, you know, ridiculous for lack of a better word, but I think that they have to meet the permit requirements to build this thing. And so you at least have some leverage with them saying, hey, you gotta have a permit, which is what you've been doing, you've been advocating for that, and if they don't get a permit, you don't let them build the deck. You wanna see the permit before they build the deck.
So I have a signing rule, I believe I've signed them.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you have to
Temporary
be,
structure, they would need a site plan review.
And it seems like, it seems like there's a big difference between building a carport or having a temporary structure or whatever. You know, like a tarp shed at a house that someone has purchased with a pretty obvious intent to live there or own it long term. I mean,
perpetuity.
you know, versus somebody who is signing up to have a site for whatever the term is, you know, I don't know, is it year to year? I mean, that would,
Yeah.
that would help our argument here if there's, if they need to be renewed every year.
So.
Yeah, so that's,
Unless we have a problem with them, people are allowed to. do
But
that.
if you have
yeah,
somebody.
yeah, but if you have a problem, then they can, then you have the leverage
Right,
because it's
that's
not
right.
renewed. And then their thing has to, then their thing they
They
build
go,
has to go. And that seems really different than somebody who is putting up a tarp shed. You know, in a place, you know, I mean, the
Somebody
complexity,
they own their.
the complexity with permanence is, even if it's a tarp shed. The person is gonna be there forever.
The tarp shed could be in the setback next to your property.
Right,
And you might not like
Right,
it.
there's
Here,
issues there, but
you already have setbacks on the campground, so.
and it's not permanent, but it's not permanent in writing. It's not just not permanent, like, yeah, of course you're gonna take it down and,
Right.
you know. There's a,
So how do we fix it?
Well,
Right,
I think the
that's
only
the
value to
problem.
the temporary thing is if we were gonna enforce it, and we don't regularly go up to see, did they actually take down their
right,
thing?
But that's gonna be Ross's job, because when they move out, it's gotta go.
Which is
But
my
some
point,
of
like,
the-
it doesn't seem like it matters if it's stated that it's, you know.
But I
if-
think,
why-
I think the discussion is, I think it was Howard who was talking about. We treating people fairly,
Mhm.
treating the camper fairly, treating the person who bought a house fairly. We can treat them differently and fairly at the same time, I think.
Thank you. Because that's exactly.
Because they're different scenarios.
He used the storage,
Container.
container.
That's
thing.
not, next to your house, that's really different.
That's way different than
Then,
what he's doing.
yeah, I mean.
I'm just gonna
I'm
throw
not
out here
sure.
that all you guys that have large parcels of land, you're lucky. Try living on a half acre and conforming with these bylaws, they suck. So
I know.
throw that out there.
I know, I know.
And we're gonna get to that.
So.
I know.
We're gonna fix
That's
it.
my
So,
sense.
so would it, I think there's a couple things you mentioned that seem to be the problem. The first being the big glaring issue, which is the campground is located in highway commercial zone. And when did that language change that became a non-allowable?
It seems commercial.
Yeah, I don't know when it changed, or I don't know if it was commercial and was exemption when I bought it. I don't recall any of that. I bought it at the working campground and the location it's at, so.
What year did you buy it? What year did you buy it, Ross?
2006.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, this is.
Okay, so there's that one, and then there's the temporary structure. Current temporary structure, or not temporary structure, but the what do we call it? This 150 square foot structure. Minor structure. What if for the campground, because those campgrounds aren't big enough really for somebody to build 500 square feet in 3 different locations around their camper. It's not gonna happen. So maybe we should look at, or could look at, a minor structure dimension specifically for the campgrounds. and put it in the language of the. The bylaws, either definitions or something.
Another angle might be, we have a temporary permit bylaw for things that don't comply with the regulations, so someone can live in a camper for a year while they build their house. The language is that even if it doesn't comply with the regulations, you can get a temporary permit if it's connected to incidental to a construction project. I think you might be able to get we could rework the language for temporary structures and say, someone, if they want to put a carport in over their camper, they come in to get their temporary permit that's good for a year. And if they want to renew that, like they're gonna be the camper again, then they can do it that way.
What if or it could be until they get kicked out of the campground.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really need to sign anything every year, do we?
No, but the point being that it's
Try to keep
that
it
it,
temporary.
yeah, that it's temporary.
Well, it's temporary because of their.
But he has to enforce it.
You're not gonna go up there anyway, are you?
No, and so, okay, yeah, so I think that's probably a feasible direction. We already have a bylaw that talks about temporary situations.
It's just gonna make more paperwork for you if you make them come back every year.
But we're not.
Yeah, you don't wanna do that.
I'm just still really hung up on how there are multiple other ones that have carports and decks around it that have gone through, and then here we are. Now this one's not allowed, all of it.
It's actually not that this was not allowed, it's the process that it's going through. They're saying that it now has to go through a site plan. We turned all this over to the DRB, right? It's
Yeah.
changed, yeah. So, so that was my next point, is how do we deal with the site plan, review?
So I guess for this issue, the question is this a campground specific issue? Or if someone wants to add a carport to the vet clinic, do they need to come in for site plan review to add?
That's a different.
That's a totally different scenario.
Okay, so, but that's so I wanna get a solid
Well, it
answer.
could be if they wanna put in a temporary one for a year,
Uh-huh.
maybe it's not.
Well, now you're mixing things, but just to clarify, right out of the gate, I said, if Ross was gonna put up a carport at his house, he needs to come in for
Right,
a permit and site plan review.
right.
But not in the campground, not the campers in the campsites.
Mhm.
I don't
So,
think that's,
yeah, so then that helps me figure out where it should be housed. It sounds like it should be housed in the campground specific use standards.
okay,
That it should be a site plan review issue. Cause basically site plan review, currently, if you're adding a building to it, you need to come in for site plan. Review.
gotcha. So that's the first and the quickest thing that needs to get solved and can be done with an interim bylaw. Correct? We could, you guys keeping up over there?
Yep.
We're awake still.
I just ran out of good plans though.
Well, I've got some just left if you want something.
That's alright.
If we define short term, the term is maybe 1 year. Then we could exempt temporary structures from site plan review, period. If we limit the temporary to 1 year.
Well, but I
It
think,
already is.
I think that's two different things, and it's crossing the boundary of where we're at tonight. Because that would be on anybody's property.
Right.
And that's not really what we're. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there, in other words. You see what I'm saying?
I can't think of another scenario where this seems like this just makes sense for this use.
Yeah,
You've got three
Is it-
campgrounds in town, if they're all treated the same.
Yeah.
Is it common for people to take down the carports?
I've never had anybody leave this put one up.
But you might someday. Someday someone may go.
if you put up a carport at your house, you need a permit, but does that mean you're gonna have a site plan review?
No.
Thank you. See, so treated the same, differently and fairly. All happening at the same time.
Yeah, I think this, I'm comfortable with where we're going.
So if we treat this purely as a campground issue, how does that simplify your life, Ryan?
Well, I think it kind of compartmentalizes what the discussion is, because if we open it up to something more broad, then it's a huge thing.
No,
Yeah,
I think
so I think, yeah, keeping it as a campground specific use
And
standard.
if we did an interim bylaw to modify specifically the campground, that address temporary structures. I mean, the lots are only 1,500 square feet at the max.
Some of them are bigger, but it's still, it's
Well,
not,
on an average.
you're not gonna build a house on them.
Well, and to that point, you're not gonna build a cabin on any of them, or a house, or anything. You're gonna drive in something that's going to leave. You got a person that's coming and going.
So let's just be careful here that your campground, so let me say I showed up and said, I've been on the wait list, I'm on the top of the list. And you call me and say, okay, Brian, you can have your site, and I'm saying, great, Ross, I sold my trailer, but I just bought a tiny house. Can I put that on your campground?
Nope.
Just wanna be sure. Just wanna be sure, because just opening that door, baby.
Yeah.
Nope.
So in your rules and regulation for the campground, you talk about what's permitted and not permitted when you have that lease for the year?
It doesn't really state, it does say in the contract, if you build a deck over a certain size, it's gotta be approved by, it's gotta be permitted by the town, but. Without having the contract in front of me, I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
I just, because I think about that tiny house thing, because some of those are how big, small ones.
Containers,
So.
30-foot container, so.
Some pretty smaller, one smaller.
I would say that tiny house is fine if it's got an axle with a set of wheels on it with a hitch on the front of it.
Where I'd be going.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean,
It shows up on wheels and
it's on your house, and I think it's more about the
For
contract.
years,
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's about the contract. It's about the fact that it's getting renewed every year. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't.
So it sounds like we're down to campgrounds, interim bylaw to fix this thing.
Yep.
That's what it sounds like. That, what everybody,
Yeah, I think it's.
So just out of curiosity, how long,
I just think it's
how long?
goes down the route of making the bylaw, so somebody can have a
but
carport.
But this whole, the reason we're here is because things were written down before and they need to be updated.
Yeah, no, I understand how
So,
to
like-
fix it, it's just I'm still baffled by it, that's all.
So, Mr. Chairman, I wanna ask the question, of what's it take to, do you know where to go with this now? As far as the language that we sound like we're looking for,
Yeah, I think I have enough to put a draft together for the board.
for an interim bylaw? And how soon does that hit the select board?
take a look at it.
It's gotta go through 3 readings with us first, right? Then
No.
Got an interim,
Doesn't,
just like we did in daycare.
Well, we need to, this board needs to propose it, so
Yes.
you need to at least review it, at least once. So probably, at the next meeting in August, if I have a draft for the board, we can work through that. And they can make changes and approve it with those changes, or they can approve it as is. I don't know how long the discussion will take, it's totally feasible that I come with a draft and we have discussions and say, come back with another draft. So, yeah, I mean, we can have the first draft at the next meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead. Something for you to look into, I thought that I had seen something that when your town plan has expired, you are not allowed to change your bylaws.
Oh.
Yeah,
yeah, you've mentioned this before, Howard.
What's that?
Howard's brought this up beforehand with the town plan being expired
Right,
and how it affects bylaws, grants and everything.
right.
That's why we gotta get the
I'm
plan.
not allowed to proceed with the change until you adopt the new one. You know, when that is in place.
Also, see if that has an effect on interim,
Yeah, you'd think you'd still.
because the whole purpose of interim is to solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So that might not be restricted by that.
Right.
I think the whole thought is that if you don't have a town plan.
I
then
understand,
you don't- they're
I
not
understand the
authorized to
thought,
have-
but you also have to understand the thought of
Oh,
it.
just, I'm saying, I think it's not our view, it's the state, it's how they define it. So. if
Yeah,
you-
I'll look at that.
So I don't, and again, whether it affects interim bylaws, it's a
Hopefully
bylaw.
not.
I would ignore it altogether anyway. Because, I mean, there's lots of laws that our legislature is actually ignoring right now that are federal. I mean, one of them is legalize marijuana. It's still legal, it's against the, so it's no federally.
We have somewhere to go with on the campground for specific use standards right here. Ryan's gonna come up with a draft and also find out whether or not we can even go down this road with the town plan being expired. Gonna move on to future items for agenda.
Well, what did we end up with a somewhat of a timeline? So we're looking at a draft here, it may take a meeting or two, and then up to the select board. As an interim, if the select board reviews the interim bylaw That's a hearing, that's just one
They
hearing.
hold a hearing.
They hold a hearing on that. So that has to go to them, then they have to set a hearing date, hearing
I
date.
think I can set a hearing date for them,
Oh, okay. All right,
as long as the meeting is 15 days out.
So in reality, this wouldn't be able to be dealt with until the second week of September, maybe.
I was gonna say, we're probably at least a month or two out.
Yeah, in reality.
Just trying to get an idea. Generally.
But if it saves doing a site plan review, yeah.
Right.
Are there fees associated with the site plan review?
Mhm.
Could those be waived in this instance?
If they don't have to do a site plan,
review, I don't think so.
I don't, I'm just saying, I'm just,
Who has the authority to waive that fee?
I've
just
always
asked a
treated
question.
the town manager as the person,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's true. I've always just got their permission.
Sounds fun to me.
No, I'm just curious if like waived.
For site plan.
She did pay for it, yeah.
I told her we're not doing site plan review, we won't have a deck if that's the case, and I guess we're not. Gonna go through this every time somebody wants to build something.
Yeah.
Because there's still 45 days to issue something after a site plan, right? Or a site review, I believe that goes through.
They have 45 days to issue the decision and then 30 days before it's effective.
Right. Unless they don't issue the decision in 45 days, in which case
It's automatic.
it's automatic. Granted, automatic.
And also my decision to require a site plan is appealable.
Right, but you're just doing what, you know.
Right.
You're doing your job,
Right.
it's not, we gotta clarify it that. You know, I understand, I just don't understand.
Yeah, at least unfortunately.
In our world.
Well, this is how things get fixed. They come to the surface and we find them and we try to figure them out.
And
I
it's
know he's got a job to do, I just don't understand why that language is there.
and we don't remember why it was there either.
I
idea when it was granted that it wasn't okay to have a campground there. Is that since I owned it, or was it prior to?
Let's see, I didn't get involved with this until about 2008 or 9. So you purchased it before that. So it would have to be in records,
There's old sets of bylaws, so we could.
I just curious, like I say, cause
How long's it been a campground?
since.
we've got zoning bylaws since 1972.
Yeah, and the campground's been there since the
Yeah,
sixties,
all the physical copies.
Don Chabot's parents officially built the campground.
in the sixties, you hear that?
Yeah.
So it's before zoning. So-
Right, but it's grandfathered, so it exists,
Totally.
but it also makes it not, to list it as not allowed in the highway commercial zone. Makes it non-conforming, which
why
is what's triggering all of this stuff,
Right,
that's
but
why.
it's been rich like that all along.
Oh.
By now, we've, you know, dealing with this question about site, plan. That's, I guess, you know.
Although just putting it as an allowed use, it is in the districts where campground is an allowed use, it also requires site plan.
For the campground. For the
But that
campground to
hasn't
be
changed in the
created,
last
shouldn't
year
be
or
for the
two.
sites.
Right, which is what we're trying to figure out, yeah, but my point is, it's not just because it's a non-conforming use, it's
Right.
also because that use requires site. plan.
Yeah, well, and I think we need to clarify that language, that site plan review is for the creation of the campground, not development of the sites within the campground. You know, if we
It
can,
might be
that might be
If
something.
that hasn't changed in 20 years of being non-conforming, why is it an issue today and it hasn't been the last 10 years? For site plan review, that's why, you know, why now?
Yeah, I guess it's interpretation, different zoning administrators, I know recent ones weren't always diligently following.
Well, I say that's my question, if nothing's changed, why did it change?
Right.
Well, let me try to fix it.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for
We
coming.
appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. On to number 11, again, we got a full plate, I don't think we need to add anything else on at this point. The next agenda, so we're gonna do the town plan, our homework, not this coming meeting, but the following meeting is when we'll have all that stuff going.
I mean, I'll send it out as soon as possible, and
Yeah,
when it should send it to me whenever you're done, and if it's done, by the time I warn the next meeting, then we'll put it on there.
Okay, everybody cool with that?
Cool.
Alright, any other business that can be legally discussed?
Hey, Brian.
Campgrounds. That'll be on the next
Yeah, cause we have to deal with it.
A home-based business, do you wanna bring that back around, or is that something we'll hash through later?
I don't think that's super high priority.
My,
Well,
I
also, how
forgot,
much
my
can
note
we-
was to add it to our future project list so we don't lose it, and it'll stay there.
Yeah.
I
mean, when it comes
would like to see an actual answer if we can even do anything with the bylaws because no town plan.
Well, and also if we could look into whether there is a time frame. Well, doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, no matter. Alright,
Cause if we can't do anything about, bylaw modifications or anything because our town plan's expired, that gives us even more of a fire under our bumps to get this.
It's a town
Yeah.
and boom.
Yeah, cause I mean, we just spent a whole bunch of time on this. It was a good discussion that needed to happen on both of these for sure. But we really need to get this town plan done. So we can really do some good work. Any other business that can be legally discussed? Ryan, you had your hand starting to go up? Okay,
Mr.
yeah,
Chairman, I'm actually looking for that language now on the town plan. If you want to wait or not.
I don't
I can
remember. I want
definitely would love to know the answer.
it in writing somewhere in the boards, there's no.
I'll pull the board if they wanna wait.
I drank a cup of coffee in the afternoon, we can stay on.
Pretty sure that that's. That's. I mean, the theory behind it is, of course, if you don't have a town plan, then you're not allowed that planning. Or zoning. And so if the town plan hasn't been readopted, technically it's void, and if it's void. Then that automatically says you can't go any. That's their thought process.
But the zoning bylaws remain despite the town plan being.
Yes, they do.
Being out of the
Not enforceable,
Oh, so then he should just build his deck.
you know.
Sounds like we're
That's
gonna
kind
have
of
this
what
whole
you just
thing
said.
as a discussion point.
So they should just go ahead.
Everybody know.
Let's put town plan bylaws as an actual discussion point for the next meeting. So that way we can, whether or not we can actually do any modifications or anything with it.
Right,
Well, I mean, we're gonna figure out whether we can do this interim bylaw, if we can't, then we're gonna talk about it, that's what you're saying.
Well, with the interim, but it's also good to know with anything else going on. Cause we have the interim for this, we just had home-based business, which is low priority. Other things, but if we're gonna, spend a lot of time on the discussion for bylaws, we should be putting that time into the town plan. Is where my head is on that.
Yeah, though, I mean, part of it is that I mean, if we're keeping up with Ryan, it doesn't matter, it doesn't help us to sit here, talk about nothing just because there isn't another chapter to talk about. So like, us getting chapters to work on and bring back is a good,
If I come to the conclusion that it is allowed, campground one will be on it. The job.
Okay, thanks.
I entertain a motion for adjournment,
Make that motion.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. Time is 8:53.